Thank you all for joining us today for today's workshop. My name is Chris Butler, and I am the Executive Director of Insight. I'm pleased to be joined today by Ryan Lukowitz. Ryan will be talking to us today about his passion, which is weather forecasting and sharing that information about the weather with people. I thought it was important to have this conversation with Ryan today because many times adults who are living with visual impairments are very quick to tell me about all the things that they used to love to do, but that they don't do any longer because of their diminished sight. For example, I've talked with people who have told me how much they used to love to cook big meals or bake items for friends and family. Folks who say they used to love to garden, travel, create art, whether it's drawing, painting, ceramics, or photography. I don't think there's a reason that people ever have to give up doing the things that they love to do. They may just have to find new ways of doing them. Ryan and his family are people that I've known for a long time because Ryan has been a participant in some of our programs here at Insight over the past several years. When I found out about how Ryan has found new ways to pursue and share his passion, I thought that having him share his experiences with all of you might be a great way to help you get motivated to pursue your own passions. With that, I want to welcome Ryan and thank you, Ryan, very much for joining us today.
Of course, it's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
So first, how about if you tell us a little bit about yourself? How old are you? What grade are you in school?
Absolutely. So I am 14 years old, and I am in ninth grade at North Kingstown High School. I've been going to North Kingstown schools my entire life, and um, I'm obviously legally blind. That's why I'm doing this presentation for you. And it's good to be here and to share my knowledge. And I'm really enjoy not only weather but speaking. Um, so that's a little bit about me.
That's great. If you feel comfortable, can you tell folks about your eye condition and how that affects your ability to see?
Absolutely. So I was diagnosed at birth with coloboma of the optic nerve, which is basically where your optic nerve is underdeveloped, and I have that in both my eyes. It's something that, as far as I understand, is pretty rare. And then a couple of years ago, I actually lost more of my vision to retinal detachment in my right eye. So I still have a little bit of vision in my left eye. I'm about 2400 in that eye, and but it's nothing usable. I can just see a little bit of light and shadows.
Excellent. So I mentioned that your passion is weather. How long have you been interested in weather and what initially sparked your interest in the weather?
Yeah, so I've been interested for probably 4 years now plus. What sparked my interest for it was basically just, watching the news every night and seeing the meteorologists on TV. And I just thought, maybe, maybe that's something I'd like, or, who knows. Also, I started my Facebook page, and here we are 4.5 years later, and I'm happy it's turned into what it has turned into.
Yeah, it's great. And that's where I'd love to start is the Facebook page. Uh, First of all, where, for folks that are on Facebook, where can they find your Facebook page?
So if you type in Ryan Lukowicz Accurate, maybe I can send out a link in a follow-up email. You can just like search that into your feed and it'll come up. Eventually, I'm working on maybe Twitter or Instagram. I have to see, with all the accessibility stuff, how that would work. But the Facebook page, I've been doing it for 4 years now, all on my own. And I give daily forecasts for the Southern New England area and post other interesting information on it. A lot of times it's tropical storms out in the Atlantic, so on and so forth.
And so for those that are following us on video, I do have a screenshot of Ryan's Facebook page, hopefully up on your screen, as well as the URL address. But again, as Ryan said, if you are on Facebook and you go to facebook.com and just type in Ryan Lukowitz accurate.
Lukowitz.
That Lukowitz accurate, that will get you to his Facebook page. And I follow Ryan, your Facebook page. You have over 700 followers now, I think, on your Facebook page, right?
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. And you post pretty much daily.
Hmm.
And so what kinds of things, beyond just typing out what you think the forecast might be for the day, what other types of things do you share on the Facebook page every day?
So it's a lot of, I'll put out always links to my podcast, which I know we'll get into. Um, a lot, sometimes it's just interesting things that I think that people should know and see. And I try to focus on simplifying things for folks, just writing, what they need to know for the day. And then my graphics that I get, I actually, my main source for pictures is from the National Weather Service. And I've found a great app called Seeing AI, which is really great to actually read some of those. It's not perfect, but it works. Have you guys done any training with that?
I don't believe that we've done a formal training on Seeing AI. We have done basic iPhone trainings, and we've talked about Seeing AI as an app that folks would find useful if they're using their iPhone. But I don't believe we've done a workshop just on Seeing AI. But you're right, it has a lot of great features, and it's free, which is the best part. It's a free app that was developed by Microsoft that will help you identify bills, read text. Uh,
Mm-hmm.
I've used it. I've been at my son's soccer game just to try it out, and I've taken a photo of him playing soccer, and then it will tell me appears to be children on a field playing soccer. So you can just hold up your camera and it'll tell you, what you're looking at. I mean, it's really amazing technology, and it's free and it's easy to use, and it works basically like a voiceover where you press the button and it tells you what it's doing. So it reads barcodes, and it's really a neat app. Are there other pieces of assistive technology that you use besides Seeing AI to be able to go out to all these different sites and post on Facebook and do all the other things that you do?
So a lot of times I'm a big voiceover user. I've become pretty proficient with doing the gestures throughout different apps and websites. And I think it's important just to take time and explore each different source to see how they lay it out. And the reality is, although this, takes time and um, can be difficult, it works. And once you understand it, then you can just go in and some are better than others, obviously, with their accessibility technology. Most are pretty good, but it's otherwise not a lot of apps like on my phone. Seeing AI is really the only main app I use just for the reading of the pictures, which is really helpful.
And so when you're posting stuff, are you using a desktop computer or an iPad or your phone, or what equipment do you use?
I'm using my phone. Pretty much everything's on my phone. Occasionally, um, I'll use my iPad. That's what I'm using right now. It works well for Zoom meetings, and occasionally maybe my phone dies. It's a good backup. But everything pretty much is done through my iPhone.
So that's pretty amazing considering everything you do that you're just doing it on an iPhone. That's pretty amazing.
Yeah.
And it speaks to, I know a lot of times people feel like, well, I can't really see, so how can I use a smartphone? But I mean, you're using it to, go to all these websites and paste images into your Facebook page and coming up with the forecast. And we're going to talk about the podcast in a minute. So it is a powerful tool once you kind of take the time to learn how to use it with all the accessibility features.
Yeah, and iOS has done a great job with that, and I do have a Dell computer that I use for school stuff, but I've just never really needed it. I mean, I guess I could use it, but at this point, there's no use. So
That's great. The other thing you do beyond the Facebook page, which I really love, and I've listened to most of the episodes, is that you do something called the Behind the Weather podcast. I know not everybody may be familiar with what a podcast is, so maybe if you could just quickly kind of explain what that is for folks.
Yeah, so I like to say a podcast is a blind person's dream, really. I mean, it is something that is certainly become more popular over the last several years, not only for people who are visually impaired, but also sighted folks. And it's basically something where it's just audio. You can make it visual, but most people don't. So there's a lot of different podcast apps, regardless if it's Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, Spotify, and there's many more that you can listen to them. And podcasts can pretty much be about everything from sports to how to cook a meal to there's ones on blindness to weather and everything else in between. If you have a topic, there's most likely a podcast about it, which is pretty cool. And they can, range in length and be used for different different reasons.
Yeah, and as you said, you can. Most people seem to access podcasts through their smartphone or their tablet, and you can download apps that will play the podcasts and keep them in a library for you and keep track of what you're listening to. And I know every morning, whether I go to the gym or I go for a walk, I just pop on my headphones and there's 2 or 3 podcasts that I listen to every day, and I just listen to them while I'm exercising or walking, or
Yeah.
sometimes if I'm ironing at home or doing something like that, I just pop on my headphones and listen. And I listen to one on personal finance, and I listen to yours on weather, and I listen to some NPR shows through their podcasts that I might miss when they air originally on the weekends. So it's a great way to access information in a very easy way as you're doing other stuff. How often do you record your podcasts?
So for the first month and a half, I started the podcast in early July, and I was doing a couple episodes a week that were, I don't know, 5 minutes, and they were all about severe weather topics. And recently I've sort of shifted to interviews. So for now it's once a week, and they're with the interviews are anywhere from, I don't know, 12 minutes to almost 30 minutes, depending on the person and the episode. And then the severe weather ones, again, are usually a little bit shorter. And there's no set schedule. I know a lot of podcasts pre-record, and then, you'll get a new one every Monday or something like that. Because I'm a lot of times referencing current weather things, regardless if it's the hurricane in the Atlantic or the winter storm. I like to post them right when I do them, so there's no consistent schedule. But if you subscribe wherever you're listening, you get a notification right on your device, which is really great when new ones get released.
That's great. One of the things I love about your podcast is that you've been interviewing some really fun people. So can you talk about some of the people that you've interviewed for the podcast?
Yeah, so I've done, oh my goodness, let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 interviews at this point, and I'm doing my best to do about 1 interview a week. I'll go through the people quickly. Paul Gordon was the first one. He is a meteorologist for the U.S. government, and we talk about, well, why does the U.S. government need a meteorologist, and what exactly does he do for them? The second one was Zach Green, who used to be at NBC 10, who I've befriended, and he now works in Boston. So talk about his story and his station and everything. The third one was Michelle Muscatello, who is a weekday morning meteorologist for 12 News here in Rhode Island and nearby Massachusetts. The fourth one was Mark Searles, who's a chief meteorologist at NBC 10. The fifth one was Bill Bartholomew, who is a podcast host. He actually had me on my podcast a couple months. Oh my goodness. He had me on his podcast talking about what I do. And then the most recent one was John Flanders. That was last week, who used to work at Channel 12 and now is actually an anesthesiologist. So that's sort of the catalog at this point, and it'll continue to grow as the weeks go on. So there's a little brief overview.
And so what are some of the things that you've learned from talking with these folks? Some things that you found interesting?
Well, I love hearing their different stories and hearing their perspective about, different things that are going on. So, I have referenced the drought a lot with certain people. The hurricanes we've been seeing, there's been a very active hurricane season. So that's been fun, just chatting about what I love and, they love it too, of course. And it's good also to make connections in the field.
That's great. And besides interviewing these folks, I know, especially early on with the podcast, you were covering particular different types of weather topics. So can you kind of touch on some of the things that you were sharing in those earlier podcasts when it comes to weather topics?
Yeah, so that's how I started. I might sort of mix those in as we go along. I'm not exactly sure, but I talked about especially a lot of summer weather threats, lightning, heat safety, reading radar, which is a big one. A lot of others. Let's see, different weather fronts. I talked a lot about the hurricane season, as the months went on, just updating people. I focused a lot on that during the summer. There really aren't many fall weather threats at this point, which is why I'm now doing interviews, which has been fun. And so I don't know, we might get back to that or do a little, some here and there. I'm not exactly sure, but yeah. The great thing about podcasts too is that once they're up, they're up. You can listen to them whenever you want. So, I had a family member over the weekend who went to the Cape, and she was so excited. She's like, I'm going to binge a bunch of your podcasts. I'm so and, and that was great. There isn't a due date for when you have to listen to them or a date that they're going to expire. So, some of you may have not listened to my podcast yet, and that's fine. You've got plenty of different options. There are 25 episodes out now, I believe. Yeah, that's something. That's the information.
So what kind of reaction do you get from folks on Facebook and folks that might listen to your podcasts about what you're doing?
It's a great reaction, generally. And I love getting feedback from people about, what they like and what I could do better. And it's, especially with these interviews, it's been fun hearing from folks who say, oh, I didn't know such and such about this person, because, a lot of those people, Zach Green, Mark Searles, Michelle Muscatello especially, you probably watch on the news day after day, but you don't know where they came from or how they got to where they are. And that's the information that I sort of like to bring to the forefront. So that's what I enjoy about it, and people seem to really enjoy as well.
So in the short term, are there other platforms, other things that you're looking to do with the weather forecasting, other things that you want to pursue to kind of grow what you've already built?
Yeah, so I've got some ideas. I might expand to Twitter and Instagram. I'm not exactly sure. We'll see. It depends if there's a presence on those. I've been trying to start a mailing list, which would send daily forecasts to people's inboxes. I'm not sure if that's actually going to end up happening. I have a lot of things that seem good, and then you know, I work on them, and sometimes things just don't work. That's just the way it is. Maybe people just aren't interested. I don't get a lot of good feedback, and so we don't do them. Eventually, it would be cool to make a little bit of money off of it. And there's a platform called Patreon where somebody can pay, I don't know, $5, $10 a month, and they receive like exclusive insider content. So that's a thought for way down the line. But also, website might be nice. It's something to think about. So I've got a lot of shower thoughts, I guess you could call them. But
Yeah, I know a lot of podcasters, once they develop a good following, they find sponsors, who are willing to sponsor the podcast in return for a 15-20 second commercial at the beginning or the end. And so there are people who do podcasts who've been able to monetize it and make somewhat of a living off of it.
for sure.
So I know in the long term, you eventually want to become a meteorologist. Do you think way down in the future, do you want to be a broadcaster doing meteorology on television and radio? Or do you think you're going to head more towards a behind the scenes role with the National Weather Service or National Hurricane Center or one of those types of organizations?
I don't know. I see myself more on the TV, radio side of things. Of course, I love weather, the science behind it. But something I've also always loved to do is to speak. And, I think I have a pretty good voice for it. So combining those two things would really be, probably the best at this point for me. But who knows? Time will tell.
Sure. Has there ever been a time when having a visual impairment has stopped you from pursuing your projects? And if so, how did you overcome those challenges?
I don't think it ever directly did. A lot of times, as I mentioned, with looking at all these different sources, I check TV stations all the way from Boston to, of course, here in Providence to New York City, and I don't know, a lot of times in other random cities for whatever reason. So I think it's a lot of exploring, a lot of troubleshooting. You have to have patience. Nothing, it's never got in the way necessarily, but like, for example, I voice type all my posts, and sometimes it is very frustrating when it does not voice type them correctly. So a lot of things take maybe more time than they should, but it is what it is. And, it always ends up to be pretty good.
Great. What kind of help or support do you receive from your family, friends, putting together these projects?
Not much. I really, in terms of help with the projects and, the Facebook page, the podcast itself, I mean, my parents will, they'll give me feedback on what I'm doing, which is always good to hear. But I always like to tell them that, this is my thing. This is my, I want it to all be me. Every once in a while, I might ask them to film a video, or I don't know, just check something. But beyond that, from family and friends, what's most important is feedback. What do they like? What is not working for them, and how can I improve based off of that? So even if you have constructive criticism, I really don't mind it. It doesn't offend me or anything. That's how you get stronger and get better at what you're doing.
And I think the great thing about your family and friends is that they've supported your efforts to do this. And so a lot of times what I hear from people who are blind and visually impaired is they feel just the opposite, that friends and family will say, well, you can't do that, or why would you want to do that, or you can't be successful at that. Or they'll step in and do things for them as opposed to letting them go out and try. And sometimes people fail and we learn from our failures. So I think the great lesson from your family and friends is that they've been willing to let you go out and try this stuff. I'm sure your parents monitor the social media to make sure nothing dangerous as ever happening, but they've supported your efforts. They've given you the latitude to experiment with these things and follow your passions, which is really important.
Yeah, and I think what's, my parents are both teachers, which, I could never do and I have no desire to do. Um, and so for them, this, they don't know where I got this, speaking or, podcasting, thing from. Uh, Certainly not from them. And I don't know anybody else who really does it. Of course, there are other people, but nobody, no really family or friends. So um, that's cool that I'm sort of, you know, d- I don't have anybody else doing it. So it's something new and fresh and cool.
That's awesome. My last question was, what advice would you give to folks, young and old, so people your age and people much older than you, who feel like having a visual impairment means that you can't do the things that you love to do?
That's a loaded question. I would say my advice is, there are people around you who want to help you, regardless if it is people at Insight, I don't know, your significant other, maybe your childhood friend, and, ask for help when you need it. But I think we all have to realize that, it is what it is. Let's make others around us proud and really overcome our blindness. And that's why I'm so appreciative for podcasts. And I think that podcasts are so important, and because there is absolutely no visual most of the time, um, which is basically why I started one and why I'm so passionate about them. If you're passionate about something, really, I would say start a podcast about it. A lot of people think that you need microphones and you need a bunch of skills. To be honest with you, I've been using my phone, a mobile app, and social media to do them, and they're still sounding pretty good, and they're doing well, and people like them. So I don't know. Maybe you're passionate about gardening, or cooking, or I don't know. It can be anything. Maybe you just like to talk about the news. Um, Maybe you want to share experiences when you were blind. Start a podcast. It's a great way to educate others. And I've honestly always thought, Insight should really have a podcast. Like, you guys could post these as podcasts. Wouldn't that be great?
Absolutely. No, absolutely. And we're starting slowly, but with these workshops, now that we're doing them on Zoom, at least for the time being, we're making the recordings available to folks. And so even folks who can't participate in the live workshops can still have access to the information. We're playing these workshops now on Insight Radio so that folks who don't have access to iPhones and tablets, but they do have one of our radio receivers, can participate in the workshops that way. So I
Yeah,
agree. The technology has made it much easier for people to access information and support. And podcasts are certainly a great way to do that, depending on your interests. With that, I'm going to unmute everybody, or as many people as I can on my end. You may have to unmute yourselves. But if anyone has any questions, feel free again just to say your first name and ask Ryan your question, or if you have a comment, you can do that too.
Hi, Ryan. This is Miranda. Can you hear me?
I can. Hi, Miranda.
Hi. I just had a couple comments, if that's okay.
Of course. Go ahead.
Yeah, so I just wanted to start off by saying how impressed I am. I'm a motivational speaker and a writer, and your delivery and just the way you speak and carry yourself for your age is outstanding. So I just want to say, what an excellent job.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, and what do you use for your podcasting? I think that's great. Congratulations on all your successful interviews.
Thanks so much. So I use a mobile app called Spreaker Studio. I just happened to stumble upon it. There are a bunch of them out there. maybe I could provide more information, but it is an app. It's accessible with VoiceOver, and um, all you do is pretty much hit a button. Well, I'll back up. You set up your podcast, you get it distributed to all the major platforms, Spotify, Google Podcasts, so on and so forth. And then when you're ready to record an interview, you just hit the record button, and then obviously stop recording when you're done, and then upload it. So they do most of the work for you. So that's the app I use. And if anybody is interested in listening or starting a podcast, feel free to get in contact with me. And of course, I'll be happy to answer any follow-up questions or comments that you have. But thank you, Miranda, for that.
Yeah, that's awesome. Have you tried Tony Petracca? Because you have a lot of big, great names that I knew.
Yeah, so I met him once a while ago, briefly. He is certainly somebody that I'll have on probably eventually. He actually grew up with my dad, so it's come. I like to sort of space them out a little bit. Like I don't want to have a rush of people from one station, and then so that's something that you'll notice as you're listening, is that they're from different places. So it'll come.
That's great. Well, congratulations again, and all the best to you.
All right. Thanks, Miranda.
Hey, so we have actually texted before. My name is Kerry. I've always been interested in weather myself, and I actually put in the chat that I met Tony Petracca several times and had spoken over the phone with him. Have you ever been interested in like internet radio broadcasts or anything of that sort?
Yes. Hi, Carrie. I did get your text a while ago. Thank you. And that's another thing. I do have a text number. I'll send a follow-up email to everybody with that, which is great. So I do listen to a lot of radio, and really I listen to a lot of other podcasts, just so I can hear other people do it, and then you'll learn things from them, which is really cool. So I'm very interested in listening to music, and also I'm interested in news and politics. So yeah, I listen to a lot of different radio stuff, which is cool. Thank you for the question.
Hi, Ryan. My name is.
Go ahead.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Okay, good. I'm sorry. Hi, my name is Glenn. I'm actually on the board at Insight. Ryan, could you tell us a little bit about your schooling, whether you attend public school and where you are, and some of the successes and the challenges that you've faced in going to school?
Absolutely. I believe your name is Brian. Hi, Brian. I might have missed that, but
It's Glenn.
Oh, I'm sorry. Hi, Glenn. Thank
Hi
you
there.
for
How are you?
the question. I'm doing great. So as far as schooling, I do go to public school. I went to Stony Lane Elementary School, then Davisville Middle School, and now I started at North Kingstown High School. And I do credit my my support team, and I've always said I'm so lucky to go to North Kingstown Public Schools, because they're one of the best school systems in the state, and I've really succeeded there in all sectors. And I have, of course, my material prep specialist, and Elizabeth Doyle Payne is my PVI best, Judy Lambert's my O&M, and they're a great team, and I think they're certainly part of the reason of why I am, the way I am.
Thank you.
No problem.
Ryan, can you hear me?
I can hear you. Go ahead.
Yes, this is Ned in Newport, and I very much have enjoyed your talk this afternoon. I was in video production for 27 years, and of course I edited both audio and video. So in your podcast, do you edit your audio?
No, don't actually. That's certainly something I'm looking into as well. But I just post the interviews as they are. I mean, there's nothing really that I need to edit for those. I will say what's cool is, especially when I was doing the ones on severe weather. I just, if I maybe forgot what I was gonna say, or I don't know, maybe I had to take a break or something, I could just pause the recording and come back to it when I wanted to. So at this point, there's really no need for actually doing editing with the podcast.
Thank you, Ryan.
Hey Ryan, this is Miranda again. I just thought I would share. I actually took some editing audio classes with Pro Tools in college, and so if you ever, obviously you're doing such amazing things already, but if you ever need editing tips, I did take a couple classes, so
Oh, cool.
I'd be
Thank you.
happy to help share what I know. Yeah.
Excellent.
Is there anybody else who has any questions or comments for Ryan?
Yeah, hi, this is Joanne. It might be a dumb question, but I mean, I don't have a smartphone. I just have, you know, a computer. So how would I access your podcast?
On a computer, so you could go to your web browser, and by the way, anybody could do this, regardless of what device you have. But if you go to Internet Explorer or Safari or Google Chrome, and you go to the search bar, you can type in Behind the Weather Forecast podcast, and it will get you to it. So that's how I would do it if I were you.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Great. Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us today. I want to thank Ryan for agreeing to share his story. I hope all of you take some inspiration from what Ryan had to say today in regards to your own passions. And as a reminder, the recording of today's workshop will be available soon. I will send it to everyone who's been on the call, and as well, we will have it on our website and social media at some point in the next day or so. So again, thank you all for being with us today, and hope you have a good rest of the day. Thanks, Ryan.
Thank you. And if you want me to, I can send a follow-up email with the podcast link and some other information.
Yeah, if you want to send that to me when I send everybody the recording, I'll include that information in.
Perfect. Thank
And Ryan, what time is your show on? I just got here. This is Don.
Oh, so it's a podcast, which is the great part. So I recommend, you can go back and listen to the recording of what you missed, but you can listen to it anytime. So right now we have 25 episodes out, and you can listen whenever. You can binge them or however it works for you.
Okay. Thank you.